What's going on, everyone? This is Professor Theo. Hope you had a blessed weekend, and now we're getting back into the swing of things. This is a video on both informative and demonstrative speeches. And the reason why I've combined those two is because, technically speaking, a demonstration speech is a specific type of informative speech. And it's important that we look at both of those, because what often happens in demonstration speeches, what I found in my classes, is sometimes the students don't do a good job of not having it simply be informative, and it stays informative. And a demonstration speech should be informative, but it has to eventually get to a demonstration. We have to eventually see some stuff. You have to demonstrate some stuff. And so I've had demonstration speeches in the past when we were doing the group demonstration speeches where the groups would do a lot of good information about something but never got around to actually showing something, demonstrating something. So I'm going to be sure to make that distinction on this particular video. And of course, we're going to make the adjustments. We're not going to be doing a group speech. We're going to be doing individualized speeches, and I'm going to talk more about that on Thursday. But for the purposes of this video, the PowerPoints are uploaded on Canvas, and it's called Informational and Demonstrative Speeches. All right, so be sure to download those if you want to view them as you follow along with this video. So we're going to start off with our working definition of informative speech. An informative speech provides new information, new insights, new ways of thinking about a certain topic. So there could be a chance where you introduce us to a brand new topic altogether, something we don't know about. But more than likely, you may be either introducing a brand new topic, or you may deal with a topic that we know about, but you're going to introduce some new insights. Maybe you're going to give us some stuff that we didn't know about in regards to that particular topic. For example, as I'm just learning certain things on social media, such as like now using Zoom to do these classes, so the topic of Zoom wouldn't be new to me, but maybe you may introduce something new about Zoom that I didn't know. Say if we were just talking strictly in terms of informative speech. So you're going to introduce new topics, new insights, new perspectives, new ways of thinking on a particular topic. Now, when it comes to informative speeches, here are a couple of things that we're going to do, or should take place. I've already stated it introduces the latest information on the topic. So you don't want to necessarily rehash old stuff. If you're dealing with a topic that's been out for a while, you don't want to necessarily rehash old stuff unless your goal is to give a historical overview of something. What would be more interesting is you're letting us know the latest information about a particular topic, the latest updates, hot news, hot the press news. And so keep that in mind even when you're doing your demonstration speech. If you're going to demonstrate something that is common, something that we all may know something about, make sure you put a new spin on it, and so think about if you were demonstrating how to make chocolate chip cookies. Instead of just making regular old chocolate chip cookies, maybe you may put a spin on it as far as the type of chocolate you may use, or chocolate chip with another ingredient such as raisins or cran raisins. So what's going to be your unique spiel? And the reason why that's that unique spin, the reason why that's important is because if you're trying to keep your audience engaged, and you say, hey, I'm here to talk to you about something new and exciting, chocolate chip cookies. Well, chocolate chip cookies, they're good, but we kind of been there, done that. And so what's going to be new? But if you say, hey, these chocolate chip cookies are different because of these reasons, all of a sudden now it may get our attention. So, and keep our attention. And so think about your demonstration speech. Make sure you're picking a topic that's going to really engage the audience and keep us focused. Number 2, it promotes understanding. So all informative speeches should be that. They should be informative. And same with a demonstration speech. They should promote some type of understanding. Like someone says, hey, here's how you do this particular thing. And it's something I've never done before. I sort of lack some understanding in that area. Well, I should check out your demonstration speech on this particular topic And all of a sudden, at the end of that speech, I have a better understanding on how to do that thing. So once again, if we're talking about how to make chocolate chip cookies, and say if I'm totally new to baking, I don't know anything about it, I should gain some understanding from your speech, some things I didn't know. Thirdly, supporting materials add interest, clarification, and proof. So if you think back to, we had a chapter on supporting materials, things like statistics and stories, and we had the underused statistics, underused supports, explanations. We had those are overused explanations, statistics. We had those underused supports like fables, rhymes, and stories, expert opinions, demonstrations. So what it's saying is, within your informative speech, as well as in your demonstration speech, throw in some of that supporting material. Think about if you're mixing the bowl when you're demonstrating how to do chocolate chip cookies, and it takes some time, and you're putting in the butter, and there's this dead silence, there's this dead time. Well, you could fill that dead time by giving us a history of chocolate chip cookies, giving us, telling us a story, one of your favorite stories about chocolate chip cookies, or why you love chocolate chip cookies, or give us some interesting statistics on chocolate chip cookies, interesting facts. So all of a sudden now, not only are you giving us more information, which is helpful, but you're also giving yourself something interesting to fill in the time. You know, instead of just having that dead space when you're mixing and doing certain things and kneading the dough and all that good stuff, and there's dead silence, and we're kind of looking at the camera like, okay. Did you know this day in history, the chocolate chip cookie, all of a sudden now you give us that interesting fact. It makes it more interesting, makes it more enjoyable. It makes the time go a little bit quicker, and it fills that dead silence, and it gives you some good information to add to your speech. All right? So those were some specific things in terms of informative speeches by themselves. Introduces the latest information, promotes understanding, and then those supporting materials are important. And those same topics, those same bullet points apply to demonstration speeches, since a demonstration speech is technically a type of informative speech. So your demonstration speech should introduce the latest information, should promote understanding, and you should take advantage of supporting material to make your demonstration speech more understandable, add clarity, and to make it more interesting. Now, specifically in regards to demonstration speeches, here's some things you need to keep in mind. So how do you get from this strictly informative side to the demonstration side? Which is what I'm grading you on. I need to see the demonstration. Well, here are 4 things you should keep in mind. Number 1, your demonstration speech promotes a skill. So you're either going to promote how to do something or how to make something. All right? How to do something or how to make something. An example of making something would be how to make chocolate chip cookies. Example of how to do something could be how to properly cut the grass. And you show us how to properly cut the grass. Or how to properly file your taxes. Anything where you're doing something. What did you do yesterday? I cut the grass. I filed taxes. Versus how to make something. Made chocolate chip cookies. I made a tie-dye shirt. So you're going to demonstrate one of those 2 things, how to make something or how to do something. And there's pros and cons with both. One of the pros, I think, with demonstrating how to make something is going to probably be some lots of visual aids in terms of ingredients or materials. Here are the things you need to make this thing. And you go step by step and you make it. One of the pros, I think, with how to do something is, well, it's often very informative. You can pick more of a variety of topics. The con is getting to the demonstration part. Because if you say how to file taxes, you got to make sure you're not just giving us information on how to file taxes. How do you actually demonstrate that? And that's the key. So when you're showing how to do something, in my opinion, it's a little bit more difficult to get to the demonstration part than it is how to make something. Because when you're doing a how to make something speech, the demonstration part comes naturally. As you're making the thing, you're demonstrating it. Whereas say if you're demonstrating how to file taxes, you can give a lot of good information on first you would do this, second you would do this, but make sure we actually see you do that. And so it takes a little bit more thought and a little bit more creativity as far as the visual aids. And so now you would kind of dress the part, maybe set the tone as far as the background, scenery, music, if you're demonstrating how to do something. Whereas it's a lot easier in terms of visual aids if you're demonstrating how to make something, because you have those materials and stuff in front of you. So you got to promote a skill, how to make or how to do something. You got to show us how to accomplish this task step by step. So if you're demonstrating how to make chocolate chip cookies, you don't go from step 1 to step 8, then back to step 3. Normally it's step by step. And so that's what we want to see. We want to see something done step by step, whether it's the doing or the making. Make sure it's in order step by step. Now, due to time, or due to maybe some financial constraints, or due to maybe some safety issues, whatever it may be, you may not be able to do every single step in your speech. And that's all right. And so I think about the times when people have baked or cooked something in class in terms of how to make speech. And maybe they did the chocolate chip cookies and they baked them ahead of time. And then they had the fictitious stove that they brought in like a box. They put the cookie dough in this box and they already had another tray in there. And they took the tray out with the ready-made cookies. And so you can be creative in terms of how to do the time-lapse stuff. What I don't want, and I'm going to talk more about this on Thursday, I don't want an edited speech. So I don't want you to stop the video and then say moments later. I want a full continuous speech. So you have to be creative in terms of time-lapse stuff. Like if you put something in the oven, voila, it's done. Or when you put something to soak, if you're doing tie-dye, and then like days later, whatever. Be creative in terms of the time-lapse. So I want you to see as many steps as possible, but we're all cognizant enough to know that you can't necessarily do every step. And for time purposes, say if you're doing the chocolate chip cookies and you have to measure certain things out, the baking powder, the sugar, all those things. Maybe for time purposes, to stretch your speech out to make the time, you measure those right in front of us on the camera. But maybe you find if you take the time to do that, you don't have enough time to do the rest of the stuff and you go over time. Well, then pre-measure some things. And so figure out what you can do ahead of time and what you can do during the actual video in terms of step by step. And I'll lead it up to your discretion, but we do want to see as many steps as possible. We don't want to have a speech that takes 10 steps and on the video camera you only demonstrate 2 and the rest you've done previously. And so be mindful of demonstrating those steps. Visual aids clarify, they add interest. If you're showing us how to make chocolate chip cookies, we don't want to have to imagine what that looks like. So say if you want to save money and say, I'm not going to actually make any chocolate chip cookies, I'm not going to have any of the ingredients, I'm just going to give you the verbal instructions and say, imagine that I'm mixing the bowl and we're putting the dough together. We don't want to have to imagine that, because then I'll be like, imagine your grade. Do you see that A? Well, you probably won't get it if you do that. And so we don't want to have to imagine all of that stuff. So when in doubt, bring out those materials, bring out those ingredients. That way we don't have to visualize those things. We want to be able to see those things. So your visual aids will be very important for this particular speech. And then finally, once again, supporting material adds clarification, adds interest. When you have to put something in the microwave for 45 seconds to melt the butter, what are you going to say during that 45 seconds? Are we going to be there 45 seconds of silence, just listen to the humming of the microwave? That'd be a great time to tell a short story or to give us some other important facts. And so use those supporting materials throughout your speech wisely to add interest and to make it more understandable. All right, 2 more slides. Here are some keys I want you to keep in mind when doing your speech. Analyze your audience. So when you think about what type of demonstration speech you want to have, consider your audience. This is your classmates and myself, and we're all at home during this COVID-19 time when you're going to be uploading these videos and we're going to watch them. So what type of topic should you choose based upon that context? So keep the audience in mind. Find ways to gain and sustain involvement. So if you have a speech, how do you get us engaged and how do you keep us engaged? You don't want your audience, especially the fact that we're at home and we're going to be watching these videos, what's going to keep us from kind of watching your video but also doing something on our phone? Kind of watching your video but also communicating to someone who's off camera. So you got to be creative in terms of how do you gain our attention and how do you keep our attention. Present new and relevant information. We already discussed that. Help listeners follow along. So as you're doing this videotape, don't forget that there's an audience. So chime in to us every now and then. The same way I may say, I'm almost finished, or I'm hoping you're getting this. Stay. Let the audience know that you know that they're still there. So every now and then, check in on us throughout your videotape speech. Decide how to best present the information. So how are you going to be set up? What location? Background? Zoomed in, zoomed out. The creative aspects. You have to plan what's the best way to get this information to us. Take steps to reduce confusion. So if you're demonstrating something that is foreign to us, something that we're not very knowledgeable of, how do you reduce confusion? So if you're using big words, if you're demonstrating how to do something and there's a lot of technical language, and you're like, well, the first step, all you got to do is minimize the chondrules of the fallopian tubologies, and now all of a sudden we're just confused. So now I gotta go on Google, figure out what it is you're talking about. So when in doubt, take out all that technical language and say it in layman's terms. What's the simple way of saying that? And if you do have to use a big term because it's necessary to what you're talking about, explain it. Give us some insight, because you don't want to lose your audience because you have all these steps and you're using all these big words and it confuses us. So keep it simple in that regard, especially considering the fact we won't have the opportunity to interact face to face and ask these questions. You just want to keep it as simple as possible. And lastly, avoid information overload. What does that mean? What I found is if someone invites me to speak for half an hour, I could have five main points and speak on each for 6 minutes, roughly. Or I could do 10 main points to 2 to 3 minutes. Well, people aren't going to remember all those main points. So don't put just more information to fill up the time. Sometimes you can still minimize the information, but just go more thorough on those 1 or 2 points. And so don't probably choose a demonstration speech that requires 20 steps. Information overload. Do something that's 5 to 8 steps, and you can just fill out the time with those stories, those informative stats and facts and things of that nature, versus just thinking you got to put more and more. More is not always better. And we've arrived to the last slide. Here are some tools that I think are going to aid in our understanding and in our memory in terms of your speech. What's going to make your speech more understandable? What's going to make your speech more memorable? Number one, some definitions. If you're demonstrating something that's unfamiliar to us, and you may have to define some things, you may say, well, as you're preparing this bread, you have to knead the bread. And you may have to define what kneading is so we have a better understanding of why we have to knead the bread and exactly what that looks like. So if you're going to use some terminology that may be not as common to us, make sure you give some definitions, some descriptions. Paint a detailed picture, especially if you're going to have to skip some steps. So say if there's some steps that you had to skip for whatever reason, time reasons, practicalities, describe to us what you would have done, what we would have seen. So we don't have to see every step. We want to see a lot of the steps, but the steps that we can't see, at least allow us to see those steps by your descriptions. And describe maybe the texture. So you're saying mix the dough. A lot of recipes that require dry ingredients and wet ingredients, there's a certain consistency you need. And how do we know if we got the right consistency when we're trying to do the recipe at home? Well, describe it to us. Well, the dough should be sticky, or the dough should be runny like a batter. The dough should be drier. So give us descriptions to let us know exactly that we're on the same page or we're off base. Of course, demonstrations. In this speech, we need to see some demonstrations. Don't just tell me all the great things about chocolate chip cookies. Don't just tell me how to make the chocolate chip cookies. Show us how to make it. We need to see some tangible, measurable demonstrations. There's going to be some explanations. You may have to explain some stuff to us. Why we need to let the dough rise if we're making bread. How long should we let it rise? What will happen if we don't let it rise? Why do we need to preheat the oven? All these things. Give us some explanations. It gives us more clarity. And it makes it more understandable. I said use some analogies. I love speaking in analogies. So maybe as you're talking about this thing that you're demonstrating, compare it to something else that's analogous. Something that we can remember. So how is baking chocolate chip cookies like dating? You know, because the dough and the chips come together in such a perfect combination that they become synonymous with each other. It's almost like, man, I can't have these cookies without the chips. We can't have these cookies without the dough. So that's sort of like me and my wife. We go together. And Theo without Nicole isn't the same, and Nicole without Theo aren't the same. It's just like chocolate chip cookies. All of a sudden now when I give you the analogy, it's going to help you remember what I talked about chocolate chip cookies, because I compared it to something that can make the light bulb go off. Narrations are just simply stories. It's one of those types of supporting material. Tell us the story, your favorite chocolate chip cookie story. I remember one time I had these Chips Ahoy's and they were so good I ate the whole bag. Tell us that story. It makes it more memorable. It takes up time. And then lastly is the stickiness factor. The stickiness factor. You ever had something get stuck to your hand and you're trying to get it, it just stuck to you? Well, I want your speech to have some stickiness. I want you to do something so great or so unique that it sticks to me. It's just stuck in my brain. Now, it could be sometimes it could be a negative thing, like it was the worst speech ever and I can't get it out of my brain. That's not what I want. I don't want that type of stickiness. So be creative. Do something that separates your speech from all the other speeches. We're going to watch all these videos and what's going to make your video stand out. So here's the cool thing is, you know, you can add effects. You can make your video look good. The only thing I'm requiring is I don't want any editing in terms of you stop, you start again. I messed up, I cut it out. No, it's going to be one continuous speech. But if you want to add in effects to that speech, have at it. I just don't want to see any cutting and splicing. I want the realness. And so you can practice as much as you want. So if you want to start all over, if you mess up and you want to start all over, hey, by all means, start all over completely. But what I don't want is you start over in the middle and then the video stops and it starts back up and you be like, I don't know what happened. The power went out in our house and our video got cut off, but now I'm back. No. And so we're going to have one unedited video and I'll talk more about all that on Thursday. But for now, hope you enjoyed this video on how to give informative and demonstrative speeches. I think the main thing I want you to get from this is you got informative speeches. Demonstration speeches are a type of informative speech, but please make sure that you leave the realm of informative and enter into demonstrative. Don't just keep it informative. We need to see the demonstration because that's what you're being graded on. And so we're going to talk more specifically about maybe some of the topics and how we're going to do this on Thursday. And so I hope to see you all on Zoom. And be sure after you watch this video to head over to the discussion board and to answer that discussion question. All right? Take care. God bless.